This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Comedians tell jokes. That's exactly what happened at Oscars 2022. However, when one joke was told that one person felt went too far, the action he took was unimaginable. Join me as I examine the case of the slap heard around the world. Chris Rock gets slapped at the 22 Oscars on this episode of True Crime and Authors.
Welcome to True Crime and Authors Podcast, where we bring two passions together. The show that gives new meaning to the old adage, truth is stranger than fiction. Here's your host, David McClam.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of True Crime and Authors. Of course, I am your man, David McClam. Hey, if you guys haven't already, make sure you follow us on all of our social media. One link to a link tree will get you every link you need to have to the show in the show notes. All right, before we begin today's case, I want to take the time to say thank you to all of you that have tuned in with me so far over the last few months. It has been a joy and a true labor of love. If you are enjoying the content and like what you are hearing, I will ask you if you can, and if you want to help out the show, you could donate to my Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. Now, my wife said I should change it to Buy Me a Dutch Bros because I traded in Starbucks with Dutch Bros. Fabulous coffee company. We just got a few here in California. When you get to the level of podcasting that I have, I've done it for now 5 years. This is my second show. It is truly no longer a hobby. It is, in fact, something that we love to do. Unfortunately, podcasting is not free. Once you get to this level, there's a lot of things that you do. You upgrade equipment, you upgrade machines, and, just time and things of that nature. So everything that you guys are willing to help with and donate to the show goes right back into the show. It allows me to continue to bring you episodes and to bring you the podcast that you guys are going to love and that I'm going to love doing for you. I am also working on other ways for you to be able to help the show, which also includes ad-free episodes as well as possibly early releases that you would get those free, as long with some bonus stuff. There are some bonus episodes that I've done that's never been released and that I've done with the David Crime that's never been released that I would like to put those over here and can give you guys those too. So if you like what you're hearing and you're willing to support the show, right there, Buy Me a Coffee is a little less $5 in the show notes description. All right, so today's case I have dubbed the slap heard around the world. It deals with the Chris Rock Will Smith incident at the 2022 Oscars. Now, unless you just don't watch the news or you've been living under a rock, everybody knows about this. It is really coming back into focus now because Chris Rock has finally responded in his new stand-up comedy show called Selective Outrage that was on Netflix. It released on March 4th. Now, if you're doing the math behind that, then you know that is about 1 week before the 2023 Oscars, which I'm sure that was no mistake. Now, before anybody says, well, that's not really crime, well, it is. Will Smith committed assault and battery right there in front of millions of people. And I think it is something to be discussed because there's some lessons here to be learned about this. So before we jump into that and what happened, what I want to do is I want to tell you about some things that you may have missed because the slap took over the Oscars. It was actually a history-making Oscars for a number of reasons. So I'm going to give you the 9 history-making moments that happened at the Oscars that you may not have seen, heard, or you missed, or you forgot about. The first one was the award show had its first all-black production team. The production team was actually led by Will Packer. Now, if you don't know who he is a Hollywood producer. And he has produced such films as Girls Trip and Think Like a Man. Him and his co-producer, Shayla Cohen, was running the whole show. First time in Oscar history that there is an all-black crew. If you guys don't know, everybody wants to pretend it's not. There is a long problem between the Oscars and African Americans for years. There's a lot of reasons, but that was a history-making moment. The second one you may have missed is Beyonce received her first Oscar nomination. She has never been nominated for an Oscar before. She was nominated for her song Be Alive, which was the original song for the motion picture King Richard. Also, for the first time ever, the show had 3 female hosts. 2 African Americans was a part of that. So you had Regina Hall, Amy Schumer, and Wanda Sykes. They've never had 3 women running the Oscars at once. That was history making. Ariana DeBose is the first openly gay woman of color to win an acting Oscar. You guys probably missed that. Here's one. Troy Kotsur is the first deaf man to win an acting Oscar. Now, Troy Kotsur is the first deaf man, but he is the second deaf person in history to ever win an Oscar. The first one was a female by the name of Marlee Matlin. If you watch TV for any number of time, Marlee Matlin is an excellent actor, and I believe she's in Children of a Lesser God, and I love her to this day, and she's now actually producing. I saw a show that she's producing now. She produced a segment around a deaf person. It was excellent. Riz Ahmed is the first Muslim person to win an Oscar for Best Live Action Short Film. He was previously nominated in 2021 for Sound of Metal, but he got his first Oscar for The Long Goodbye, which was based on his 2020 album with the same name. Yvette Moreno is the first Latina producer to win an Oscar. She was the producer on Encanto. Okay, so if you guys have kids, everybody's seen Encanto. What an awesome movie. Best Director is awarded to a woman for the second year in a row. That was Jane Campion. She won for The Power of the Dog. Kathleen Bigelow won it in 2008 for The Hurt Locker. So she becomes the second woman in a row to get Best Director. And the biggest one that goes along with Troy Kotsur is Coda takes home the Best Picture win. Now, remember, I just told you that Marlee Matlin was the first person to win a deaf Oscar, where she also plays Troy Kotsur's wife in Coda. Those are the 9 moments that you guys probably missed. Now, where was I at when this took place? Well, I was actually watching the Oscars that night because I did have an interest. I wanted to see if Apple TV Plus was going to be able to do what Hulu hadn't been able to do in 14 years and Netflix hadn't been able to do in about 10 or 11 years, and that is to win that Best Picture spot. They've been vying for it for years, and then you have a streaming service like Apple TV Plus comes in, they're just about at that 2-year mark, and they take home the Oscar. Not only that, but then we get Troy Kotsur in there, who's winning his first Oscar for leading actor. And boy, that was a history-making moment. I was sitting in Best Buy. I was off work because I was waiting for my car to get done because some stereo stuff was being put in. So what happened? Well, if you guys don't know how big this is, it even has its own Wikipedia page, which I don't need to read because we know what happened. But it was Will Smith and Chris Rock slapping incident, which is the name of the page. So basically what happens is Chris Rock is there. He's a presenter for the show. Okay, he's there to present the best documentary feature. But he's also a comedian. And if you ever watch the Oscars, there is nobody that comes out there that doesn't crack a few jokes or they try to get you more interested in what they're about to talk about. Even people that are not comedians, that's just plain old everyday actors, they have a script that they're reading off the board and they're there to try to crack some jokes, and sometimes they just ain't very good. So Chris Rock comes out and he tells a number of jokes that he had already written for this occasion, but the joke that got him slapped was the joke that he told about Jada Pinkett Smith. And he said, Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. Now, let's analyze this slap because I'm getting tired of people talking about Will was just defending his wife and this is all he needs to do. I mean, he has 3 women that's behind him 100% with this slap. Some of them, I don't believe they said anything. How about the name Janet Huber? She was the original Aunt Viv. That's a whole mess. If you guys have been watching for the last 10, 15 years, all Janet Huber's done is badmouth Will Smith. She's cussed out the show. She was the one that said she wasn't going to be working up under no rapper who going to tell her what to do. They was at odds for years. They just made up a couple of years ago before Will Smith had the Fresh Prince reunion. I don't take anything she says. Tiffany Haddish supports him. Nicki Minaj is like, wow, people saw the joke. Will saw his wife's pain. He saw his wife's pain. Really? Go back and watch the tape. Will Smith wasn't seeing nobody's pain because when Chris Rock cracked the joke, Will Smith was cracking up like everybody else. It's there in plain sight. I've watched this tape 3, 4, 5, 6 times. He's rolling until Jada shoots him this look. And if you watch the clip, you will see that he's all laughing. Jada rolled her eyes, and then she shoots this look at Will. And when she does, all of a sudden, Will's whole demeanor changes. He gets up, he walks up on the stage, and he then slaps Chris Rock. Now, if you watch the incident, you may have been thinking the same thing I was at the beginning, which was that real? Now, you did hear the mic ruffle, and you heard within the shirt, some people say they knew it was real from that, but not really, because if you move a certain way or fast or whatever, the mic is going to rub no matter how they put on the lapel. So the way that the slap looked, being that both Chris Rock and Will Smith are actors, it looked like it was a stage hit. So the way that Chris Rock rolled back looked like it was fake. And then, Will Smith kind of had a smirk on his face and he adjusted his jacket and he walked off. But the look on Chris Rock's face after it happened, you knew it was real. He had this look of shock. He had this look of confusion. He had this look of, what did I do? He kind of had this look of, dude, we was cool. I idolized you for all these years and now you're going to slap me. Then Will goes back, sits down, and he takes it to the next level. Cursing, keep my wife's name out your effing mouth. And they had to bleep that with the 3-second thing. It was horrible. Now, he's now slapped Chris Rock. Chris Rock confirms that by saying, I just got slapped by Ali. So now the question begins. Now he goes back and he sits down in his chair. Now, here's where I'm confused. I think what they did was they cut the commercial, but you were still seeing all this stuff in the aftermath. I don't know if they forgot to turn off the cameras or what the case was, but you were still seeing all the wrestling going on in the aftermath. There's a lot of people that night that I lost respect for. I lost a lot of respect for Will Smith. Will Smith has been the person that you wanted your kids to sit down and watch. Everybody was watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He was this star that had no blemish, no marks, right? You never heard him doing drugs. You didn't hear him cheating on nobody. You didn't hear him beating up anybody. The worst rumor that ever really came out about Will Smith was now people is trying to say that they have receipts on now was back when he did the show or the movie 6 Degrees of Separation, rumors have started coming out that Will Smith was gay. That there was parties that were staged for black actors who were men who were in the down low. Now they've contributed that now to the Illuminati, and now even his son is coming out and saying that this is true and all the things that he's seen. But that's the worst thing up until this point you have ever heard about Will Smith. But what about Chris Rock? Wasn't Chris Rock the one that got smacked? Now, why was Denzel Washington, Tyler Perry, and Bradley Cooper all consoling Will? I lost some respect for them because instead of telling him, this man, what you just did was wrong. I'm not going to sit here and hug you, but I do need you to stop showing out. You've already embarrassed yourself enough. Let's sit down. They're all hugging him and rubbing his back and consoling him and making sure he's okay. Chris Rock is the one that just got the mess slapped out of him. Didn't nobody say nothing to him? Didn't nobody say, Chris, you okay? Didn't nobody go up there and rub his back and say, Chris, we sorry? Chris Rock was more embarrassed, and he felt like that he messed up the Oscars for the three women that was hosting. He actually apologized to them profusely. Wanda Sykes said that when we wanted to make sure he was all right, he was making sure we were okay. He was saying, I'm sorry for what happened. I've messed up y'all's night. Chris Rock did absolutely nothing that night. He told jokes like everybody else did, but he gets slapped because he has a guy that's down here whose wife has controlled everything that he's done, and not in a good way, for years. There was already a problem brewing with Chris Rock and with Will Smith from the 2016 Oscars because of the fact that Jada Pinkett Smith tried to have all black actors to boycott the 2016 Oscar ceremonies because Will Smith was not nominated for Concussion. Now, if you watch Selective Outrage, which is Chris Rock's new stand-up comedy special on Netflix, you're not going to see the fluff that he made. Because if you watched it live, it was also the very first time that Netflix did any comedy special live. So it was totally unedited. He did mess up the joke that he told about the 2016 and the Concussion. He actually said that they wanted him to quit because he wasn't nominated for Emancipation. Emancipation is the new film that he just released not long ago. But he meant to say Concussion, and then he did say, I done messed up the joke. Now, since then, Netflix has went in and they have edited that so that you don't see that. But his whole line basically was they wanted him to boycott it because of Emancipation, which he meant to say Concussion, which was the biggest trash film ever. That's what his whole line pretty much was. And he refused to do that, and that left a bitter taste in the mouth of Jada Pinkett Smith, at least since then. I'll back that up with this. What if I told you that night Chris Rock was not the only one that told a joke that could be looked upon as negative against Will Smith and Jada? So basically, Regina Hall ended up poking fun at them too. So she went around with her skit basically saying, I have it right here. She says, the Girls Trip star began by stating that she needed to round up a number of good-looking male actors for COVID tests before naming Timothée Chalamet, Bradley Cooper, Tyler Perry, and Simu Liu. Hall also called up Javier Bardem before retracting his name due to the fact he is still married to Penelope Cruz. Oh, wait, she said, you're married, quipped the presenter. I mean negative. But then she went on, Will Smith, you're married, but you know what? You're on the list and it looks like Jada approved you, so get on up here, get on up here. They rolled about that joke. Regina Hall didn't get slapped. That was about the entanglement that everybody should know about because they put it on Red Table Talk. Where was the slap for Regina Hall? Nobody said slapped her. Nobody said boo, nothing. Now it's coming out that the reason why Will Smith was all protective was because of the fact that Jada Pinkett Smith has alopecia and that Chris Rock knew that. Well, I'm going to tell you I agree with Chris Rock. Chris Rock said he did not know that she had alopecia. I believe he did not know that. I don't think that Chris Rock, being that I know is now divorced, but he had a wife, he has 2 daughters, would not make fun of somebody if they have an ailment and they're sensitive about it. So I'm going to say something y'all may disagree with me on. Okay, so here it is. I understand that there probably is different stages of alopecia. I get that. However, the people that I know with alopecia, they can't really grow hair. If they do, it's in patches and it comes off immediately. There was a guy that I followed on the show for a long time. They called him the alopecia warrior because he was out there promoting for kids that has alopecia that you can still do the things you want to do. Don't let this get you down. This man had no hair. He says alopecia takes it all. He doesn't have any. Jada Pinkett Smith, if she has it, which I'm not saying that she don't because she was diagnosed with it, must be a different kind, must be, a light kind, because she can grow hair, it seems, at any time that she wishes. She was running around with a head full of hair not long ago. She decided to shave her hair off. Willow did that too. Okay. And then the little videos that she had made, if you don't follow her on Twitter, if you don't follow her on Instagram, if you don't watch Red Table Talk, you're not going to know that Jada Pinkett Smith has alopecia because it has not been public. It has not been in magazines. She didn't say it on an interview. She just decided one day to make a video, TikTok, I believe it was, pretty much saying, hey, I have alopecia. Here's a little line. Now, the line that she had looked like somebody had took a clipper and just like nicked her at that point. But she goes, now I've decided to shave off my hair. That was the first time that anybody had ever heard of that. But again, the people that I know, like I said, I'm not saying she don't have it. I could be wrong. But the people that I know and the research that I've done with alopecia, a lot of people that have it as serious as she's claiming to have it don't have hair. They're always bald because the hair doesn't stick around. So I believe Chris Rock when he says he did not know that she had alopecia. I don't think he would have been that cruel. Yet, does that give somebody, especially somebody that's supposed to be cool with you, the right to come up and do that? Here's what I think we all missed. And then I'm going to tell you what I feel about his response because he's getting serious mixed reviews on that. And I'm going to tell you what my thought is. The one thing that we have to keep in mind is this. The night that Will Smith smacked Chris Rock, he just didn't smack Chris Rock. He smacked Will Packer and the first all-black crew. He smacked all of those people I just read off to you in those 9 moments. He smacked everybody in the audience because he stole away the show that they were there to concentrate on away from them. He made black people look bad. I'm just going to tell you that. Whether you agree or disagree, let me kind of put that in context. I did say earlier that the Oscars and black people has had odds from the beginning. And it's true. Black people does not win Oscars at the rate that they should. There's only been 22 Oscar winners in history that are black. And I believe it goes all the way back to 1938, don't quote me on the year, but it's somewhere around that because Hattie McDaniel won for Gone with the Wind. She wasn't even allowed to go receive her Oscar because she was black. It was 1938, people. But look at all the Oscars winners that we should have that I feel like get looked over every single year. I give you one from 2023. Angela Bassett should have won the Oscar she was up for. Didn't win it. Angela Bassett is one of the greatest actors of our time. She didn't even get nominated for What's Love Got to Do with It for her excellent portrayal of Tina Turner. Even Tina Turner herself praised Angela Bassett for that. I'll give you another one. Cynthia Erivo. She played Harriet Tubman. Cynthia Erivo should have been the 3rd African-American to win an EGOT. If you don't know what an EGOT is, that means that you have hit the Grand Slam. You have won the 4 major awards for the arts. So you've won the Emmy, the Grammy, the Oscar, and the Tony. So if you know, Emmy is usually TV, Oscar is movies, Grammy is music, Tony's is stage plays. But she got snubbed for that too. I'll give you one more. Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx barely won his Oscar for his portrayal of Ray Charles. They weren't going to give it to him. All of the people that was in the nomination with him, from what I heard from the story that I got, said if they didn't give it to Jamie Foxx, that they was not going to accept it because they feel like he was the one that should win that. Now, let's look at all the things that Jamie Foxx did to get that Oscar. Do you guys know that he walked around his house for months blind? He made sure that they closed up his eyes because he wanted the performance of Ray to be as authentic as it possibly could be. So he wanted to know what it was really like to be blind and feel his way around so that he can make it be very authentic. I think that he probably worked the hardest of anybody that year that was in his category to win. But yet and still, they didn't want to give it to him. So to be able to have an all-black crew produce the show was amazing. And they were able to prove that they could do this show just as good, if not better, than their counterparts. But Will Smith sunk in that night to all of the stereotypes that they say about those of us who are African-American men. I bet you there was somebody back there saying, you're going to let them run with the ball and watch, something's going to happen. And it just had to be at the hands of another black person acting ignorant. So when he walked in there and smacked Chris Rock, the people that says that all black men are angry and we can't solve anything without putting our hands on people and we always cause a scene, well, there you have it. I don't know any better way to put it. Will Smith also slapped the Williams family that night. Now, he was able to get his award. Will Smith did win for King Richard. I ain't gonna lie, I was against it. I think that they should have, they've pulled Oscars from people for lesser reasons. I don't think that they should have given him that Oscar. I understand he earned it, I got that, but he just assaulted the man on stage. He just embarrassed the Academy. He just embarrassed the family that he was portraying. And if you guys didn't know this, Venus and Serena did not know if they wanted Will Smith to portray their father in the beginning. He had to win them over to even be able to do that. Now they're sitting out there probably saying, man, we made the biggest mistake in our life because now he gonna go up here and he gonna act a fool. The sickening part about that is they give him the Oscar, he gets a standing ovation, and he gives a 19-minute speech. In that speech, he tries to rope Richard Williams into it by saying that he like Richard Williams and that he wants to be a protector and things of this nature. And the Williams sisters took to social media and pretty much told Will, leave my dad out of it, that they were embarrassed by it. You just overshadowed the good work that you did. And if you didn't see King Richard, I can't take nothing from him. That was one, pardon my French, hell of a movie. It was great. I felt like that I was watching Venus and Serena grow up. I felt like, hey, man, I could be Richard because I'm as protective as he was. He was portrayed very well, but that one slap did it. It took all that away. It's almost like when they say when you're a kid, you can do 100 things that's good, but it only takes one bad thing to set you back. Now, why wasn't Will Smith escorted out? Why wasn't he arrested that night? Well, everybody wants to come down on Chris Rock about his response, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But Chris Rock is the reason why Will Smith did not go to jail that night. Will Packer has did several interviews since then. And if you guys don't know this, he's the producer of the show. So these kind of things happen. He's supposed to take these things into his hands, and he's the one that can give the orders to have things done and things of that nature. But when they asked him, why did they not escort Will Smith out of the building? He says, because I don't believe that is what Rock wanted. Now, as story is told, Will Packer does go find Chris Rock in the back because he wanted to doubly confirm that Chris Rock actually got smacked. So he walked up to Chris and said, hey, Rock, did he really hit you? And he said, yeah, man, he slapped the piss out of me, basically what he said. And he went back to his dressing room and he said, look, what do you want to do? He says, the police, is here. We can have Will arrested. What do you want to do? And Chris Rock pretty much said he didn't want to do anything. He didn't want to press charges. He didn't want to be responsible for putting another black man in jail. He said, so we're just going to leave it where it is for now. And then he turned off and he left, I guess, because I think Packer did say after he was done, he did leave the premises immediately. Chris Rock is the reason why Will Smith is not in jail. Why didn't Chris Rock hit him back? He's more of a man than me because I don't know if I'd have been able to contain that. First, I'm embarrassed that you're slapping me in front of all these people. You're messing up the show for all my friends, no matter what color they are. All of them is here. We're all actors and actresses together. Man, we're here to celebrate a night of their extraordinary work. And you come here and act a fool because you couldn't take a joke that I told about your wife when somebody else just told a joke about your entanglement, but you want to slap me? I think there would have been a brawl that night. But Chris Rock, he took that and he ran with it. So now his response. Of course, Chris Rock had a stand-up show the next night after the Oscars. And of course, everybody wanted to hear Chris Rock talk about the slap. Chris Rock made a statement on his show after the Oscars that he did, because now, let me just tell you what happened to him. Will Smith probably did him a great service because he made Chris Rock a lot of money. After the slapping incident, his ticket sales went through the roof. If he was doing an arena that wasn't sold out, it was sold out now. You couldn't buy a ticket to a Chris Rock show in 2022. They were all sold out. And so when he came on the stage, he pretty much said, I know what you want to hear about. He says, but I'm not going to talk about it until I get paid too. Now, he may have meant that, but then he followed up with this. He says, you guys have to understand that I've already written the whole show. Just because things happen in life, I can't just rip up what I wrote and rewrite a script. It takes a long time for these comedians, if you guys don't know, to write a show. It could have taken Chris Rock a year to write the show that he was doing in 22. He could have wrote that in 2021. Then they go through the whole entire thing where they go around to like the joke factory and they do a lot. You know, they go try these jokes out on different various people before you actually see the live special. So there's no way that he could just now all of a sudden interact jokes or insert jokes about being slapped when it would have been cool and smooth. So 1 year later, first of all, you got to commend Chris for taking a year. He didn't say anything to anybody. He wasn't making fun of it on any of his other stand-ups. People thought that he maybe was not going to answer. And then he came up with selective outrage. It's the last 10 minutes of his show. Everything that Chris Rock said, you have to let the victim speak. Now, the one thing he did say is he's not a victim. You're not going to see him on Oprah crying. And I appreciate that because of all the things I've been through. I don't look at myself as a victim. I look at myself as a survivor. But he was victimized that night. That night, he was a victim being victimized on stage. He didn't see it coming. He just chooses, like I do, not to live being a victim. There's a difference. When you live being a victim, you give the person that victimized you all the power. But when you take your life back and you take your name back and you become a survivor, you take the power back. That's what Chris Rock did on Selective Outrage. All the jokes he told, yes, he ended up calling Jada a B. He talked about the entanglement. He talked about Will practices selective outrage because he goes, none of this stuff had anything to do with me. What it had to do with is that Will Smith is mad that his wife had an affair with his son's friend, and she pretty much runs Will Smith over. And she go, after all of that, who does he hit? Me. There wasn't a joke in there that he told that was untrue or that was out of pocket. But look at Chris Rock's face if you watch it. You could tell he was hurt. You could tell that he wanted to get this off his chest. You can tell that he pretty much is done with it. That he probably laid it all on the stage. But people saying that he was ruthless and he shouldn't have said these things to Will. And Will Smith had the nerve to go into my something that he was hurt by the special and that he was mad at Netflix for giving Chris Rock a stage. Really? You the one that created this. What you should do as a man is sit back and be like, I deserve that. And you continue to try to make amends. Because Chris Rock didn't just go make these jokes up out of being cruel. He made these jokes up out of what you did to him. And unfortunately, this is going to stick around with him forever. I definitely agree with Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was the first actor that came out and he said, man, I think Chris Rock should sue Will Smith for $100 million. He says, because this is something that Chris Rock is never, ever going to be able to escape. It was done on the Oscars. It's a part now of the 94th Oscars. There's going to be jokes that's made about it from now to the end of time. Case in point, Jimmy Kimmel made a big joke about it at the end of his monologue. He was the host this year at the 2023 Oscars at the very end. He's going to see it on YouTube. He's going to see it in magazines. It's just going to be playing his mind. And I guarantee you, every year, somebody's going to have something to say about it. It's never going to go away. I would have sued him like Jim Carrey. I would have sued him for the slap. I would have sued him for pain and suffering. And that's what Jim Carrey was saying, because he's going to have pain and suffering probably for the rest of his life. There was some actor that he knew, I can't remember who it was, but I was watching an interview with him and he goes, me and Chris Rock is friends. And he goes, now when I see Chris Rock, I see him not only as my friend and an excellent comedian, but the guy that got slapped. I'll give you one case in point. Well over 20 years ago, there was an artist named Alanis Morissette. She released a very famous song called You Oughta Know. Now, if you listen to that song and you read the lyrics, it's about her man cheating on her. Well, that was about a very famous actor. His name is Dave Coulier. You know him as Uncle Joey from Full House. To this day, all these years later, Dave Coulier has never really lived that down because everybody knows the song's about him, because Alanis is an artist. She's a singer. She wrote a song about it. She gave it a catchy beat. It caught on. Everybody loved it. And now all these years later, every time I hear that song, I say, poor Dave Coulier. That's the same thing that's going to happen to Chris Rock. Poor Chris Rock. It's all these years later. They still talking about it. So Will Smith deserved everything that he got. Everything that Chris Rock said was true. If you agree with him calling Jada a B or what have you, I don't know how far that goes, but I'm just here to let you know that I have no sympathy for Will. And the thing is, if you actually read Will's book, and I've told everybody this before, I read his book. His book is called Will. It's a book that he wrote, his autobiography. Now, a lot of people went reading this book because of the fact that they wanted to hear if he was going to talk about the entanglement and all of that. I can tell you that he did not talk about that at all. He totally avoided that altogether. So if you read the book for that, you're not going to get it. But the interesting part of the book is the beginning of his book. If you read it, he tells you in the beginning that he's soft, that he's been pushed around by women his whole life because he feels guilty that he could not protect his mom the way that he feels that he should have been able to. And he goes on to say that in relationships that he's had over the years, he's always been pushed around. He's always let the women do what they wanted to do to him. And that's why you got him the way that he is. If you want to be honest, Jada Pinkett Smith is the problem. She's always been the problem. She's not with Will for the right reasons. She really wanted to be with Tupac Shakur. That has been said multiple times. But on top of all of that, she abuses him. And there has been videos that has been produced, and they are all over YouTube where you see this take place. For that part, I do feel for Will Smith. I don't think Will Smith has been in control of his life on his own for a number of years because Jada has controlled that. But if you really want to see that play out for yourself, then I encourage you to actually read his book, which is called Will. You will find that out for yourself. Plus, there's all kinds of good stories in there about Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and how he met DJ Jazzy Jeff and how that came to be. But that is still no excuse for what he did to Chris Rock. So do yourself a favor. If you want to hear his side of it, go check out Chris Rock's Selective Outrage. It is on Netflix right now. And no matter what you read, people's dropping things saying they cut his joke. They did not cut his joke. They edited it so that it didn't look like that he messed up, which is what he would have done if the show was not live. All right, guys. So in closing, I guess the bottom line is we have to be careful what we do, and I guess not what we say. This is why a number of comedians has quit comedy, even though Dave Chappelle quit and he came back. He said that people is just too fickle these days. They're too easily offended. That's why he got out. These jokes have been told against people forever. I just told you the joke that was said by Regina Hall. She didn't get smacked at all, but whatever it was with Will Smith and Chris Rock, it struck that chord. And I am in belief that it is because of that whole 2016 thing, and there have been issues with them before. But putting our hands on people never, ever, 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 ever is the answer for that. And I hope that we can find better ways of handling these things going forward in the future. All right, guys, so I thank you for tuning in to this one. I hope that you enjoyed it. I enjoyed bringing it to you. Let me tell you who you're going to hear from next week. So, author number one that you're going to hear from is going to be Tony Reed. Tony is the author of a book by the name of 12/26/75. I won't get too deep into it because you're going to hear the fabulous interview that comes out of that. But I will tell you that it does deal with the Golden State Killer. You definitely want to tune in for that. If you've had any thought patterns about what was going on with the Golden State Killer, did people actually know who he was for 41 years that he was running around killing people? Oh, you want to tune in for that. But I'm also going to give you a second author. The second author that you will get is going to be Patrick Shattuck. Patrick Shattuck is actually the author of a book called Dawn's Web. It is a thriller. It is a great book to read. I won't get too deep into it, but I'll tell you that Dawn is a rebellious girl and she is skilled in secrecy. We talk about all the things in that book. It tells you what's going on next. You definitely don't want to miss that one. And of course, I can't let you guys get away without giving you an extraordinary person. That person is going to be Robert Kerr Beck. He had an extraordinary job because he was a corporate spy. So we're going to talk about his book, Ruse, Lying, the American Dream from Hollywood to Wall Street. And you're going to learn everything about what it was like being a corporate spy and the ways that he went about it. So you definitely don't want to miss any of those things next week. All right, once again, thank you for tuning in. I know you guys have many choices in true crime podcasts. I am just happy and grateful that you have chosen me to come back every week. Also, keep in mind, once again, if you like what you hear here, you want to support the show, one link in the show notes for Buy Me a Coffee. You can do that for as low as $5, and I greatly appreciate it. All right, so I hope you guys are all being good out there to yourselves and to each other, and that you're having an excellent day. And always remember, always stay humble. An act of kindness can make someone's day. A little love and compassion can go a long way. And this is the podcast where two passions become one. I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thank you for listening to True Crime and Authors. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Join us on social media. On Facebook at True Crime and Authors. On Twitter at Authors True. On YouTube and TikTok at True Crime and Authors. And email at truecrimeandauthors@gmail.com. Cover art and logo designed by Dazzling_Ray from Fiverr. Sound mixing and editing by David McClam. Intro script by Sophie Wild from Fiverr. And I'm the voice guy, your imaging guy from Fiverr. See you next time on True Crime and Authors.